Welcome back, everybody, to the Chatooine Show, the best and brightest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy, filled with the wretched hive of scum and villainy. We're here on Wednesday nights talking about all things Star Wars, and tonight we're talking about the big breaking news of a new Star Wars trilogy in the works over there at Lucasfilm, as well as Rey possibly being the future of the Star Wars brand. I'm Star Wars Only, and I'm joined with Lunga and Palpmemes, my co-host, and tonight we have a special guest, Ro, from the Scare Scuttlebutt podcast. We have the link to their show in the description below. Before we get into the show, Ro, introduce yourself to us. Tell us a little about yourself and the podcast, please.
Sure. My name is Ro. I go by Ro. Thank you very much. Yeah, started the podcast with a buddy of mine back in 2019. Jeez.
Yeah, we're old, bro. We're old.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
okay.
Starting to forget things. 2019 Star Wars Celebration Chicago was in full swing. I live in the Windy City, so I just took out a microphone and a recorder, went out to record some people, have a little conversation about what it is they like about the franchise, and said, you know what, let's make a podcast, and here we are.
Yep.
And what unfortunate series of events led you to being on this show? I don't know how you went from a good start to
Lunga and I have exchanged witty retorts throughout through the last couple of months, so it's been a lot of fun.
Yes, and we're both Chicagoans.
Show, I apologize.
And it's nice to have someone on a show that's not a fetus for once. So it's
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
We have to
Who would do that?
explain every pop culture reference from the 80s to.
not only you don't understand. Only is the oldest young guy I've ever met. Just so you know, he's one of his favorite band is the Eagles. Ro. That's just let's.
Oh yeah, when I said they're
there.
just okay, he's looked at me different ever since.
One of the greatest. I actually watched the Warriors movie the other night too, because my roommate's from New York. I was like, you know what, this is a good classic, little '70s movie I can bring back to him. But yeah, I'll go.
Before we go,
you two in the Windy City one day.
Wiggy City. Before we continue, we do want to shout out the super chat. KD Miller, superstar at GR. Thank you so much, KD, for the super chat.
Thank you
Much
so
appreciated.
much.
And hello
That's
to
a
everybody
loyal channel
joining us. Yeah, thank you for everybody joining us in the chat. Thank you for the shout out. With your people, I had Red 5 posting in there and stuff like that too. So thank you guys for joining us today. It's all yours, only.
Yeah, if you guys are watching this live, listening to it later, whatever you're doing to listen to Chatooine, help us out. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel for some of the future episodes of the show. Follow us on all the socials in the description below. And if you enjoy this nonsensical show, you can become a channel member. I don't know if you remember those. Or you can leave us a super chat during the show. We'll answer any questions that you may have. And there's a lot to get to today. I'm sure you guys are keeping up with a lot of news over the past couple weeks. So in today's, show, I want to kind of give all the context first. We had a lot of reports of a new Star Wars trilogy, while also getting reports that Lucasfilm believes that Rey is the only character that can bring people into the movies and might make her the future of the Star Wars brand. How do you not love this, Palpmemes? Lucasfilm, they don't seem to know what they want to do right now.
It's fucking delusion. It's delusion. And I'm a Rey fan. I really like Rey. I've always advocated for her, but it's delusional. Oh, anyway, sorry.
Well, we'll go point by point on this,
Yes.
and I want to, excuse me, I kind of want to go by like how they release the news and everything, because there is so much to get to. So I want to go over the Deadline article first. They released a new report that just the biggest news is we're getting a new Star Wars trilogy, and that's big because of everything that they've just announced. So the way we do things on here, Rose, we normally go clockwise. So I'll go to Lunga, I'll go to Palpmemes, I'll go to you, and then I'll give my take, and then we'll move on to the next topic. So Lunga, start us out here is, with these four new Star Wars movies that were announced in the past 2 years, what was your reaction to the idea of having another trilogy coming out now?
Normally, hearing in a perfect world, if I hear the phrase new Star Wars trilogy, as a Star Wars fan, I'm excited. Okay? I'm excited. I don't care. Give me a bunch. Give me concurrent trilogies. Give me 2 trilogies happening at the same time in different eras. I'll be there. That's great. That's fine with me. I don't think there's such a thing as too many movies unless you're doing a Marvel where you were trying to pack 20 movies in a year, and that's impossible to do. So normally that'd be fine. But with the uncertainty and all the moving, and this has been right there. Lucasfilm's problem is they announce something, don't follow through. Announce something, go through 10 writers, don't follow through. Announce something, shelve it. You change directors, then it switches from movie to television, and then it's not heard about for 3 years. Because as we learned in all these other articles, apparently there's still a bunch. Ryan Johnson's trilogy is still in the works. Taika Waititi's trilogy is still in the works. It's still out there. Like, they won't even say we're not doing it anymore. Like, the only thing apparently they have the cojones to say we're not doing is The Acolyte. That was the only thing they have the cojones to say we're not doing. Okay, we're done. We're not doing any more of that. Okay,
That shows you how bad it was, by the way. Just saying.
Yeah. But that's the problem with it, and that's what worries me about it. It's like, okay, we're doing a new trilogy, but then, and we're going to get into this when we talk about it, the articles, the way they wrote them, it's, and now again, we also got to remember this, and this is usually 99% of the time we get Star Wars news. Never from Lucasfilm. Right? It's never an announcement. It's never anything they put up on StarWars.com. The only thing we've gotten on StarWars.com was what? Mandalorian Grogu, right? That's the only thing. That's the only actual announcement they made, and Sharmina Abito-Chaboy, they did the announcement for that, right, when she was going to be the director.
No, they did all three of those movies.
Yeah,
at
Rogue
Celebration,
Squadron.
and then
They announced Taika's film. They announced Rey's.
Taika's film,
So
right.
But you're correct.
Right.
They did not announce this new thing. This is something from
Right.
the trades.
Right, so this is all from the trades, and it's all from sources and this and that, but it is the trades at least. It's not Bespin Bulletin or Snyder. Or
Puck News is a big one that
RPK
people
or
were worried about.
Puck News.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is a trade. So it could be what's going on, but they're kind of not being clear with even what they're saying with their sources. It's like, okay, it's a new trilogy, but it's a Skywalker saga. Oh, wait, hold on. No, it's not a Skywalker. Because they changed it on the same day, right? They put that in there and then they retracted it on the same damn day. That, wait a minute. It's not actually a continuation of the Star Wars saga or the Skywalker saga. Then what is it? Is it Rey? Is it not Rey? Is it then it's Rey's Obi-Wan Kenobi in this in the, okay, but is she in the trilogy? Oh, she'll probably play like an Obi-Wan Kenobi, but what about her movie? Oh, well, that's gonna be her movie. As usual, Lucasfilm is a clusterfuck. that's what's happening here. And that's why anytime I hear something like this, as much as I want to be excited, I have trepidation.
What about you, Papa Memes? What was your reaction?
I mean,
we have 4 movies. We have a new trilogy now.
Oh, my reaction to Simon?
No. Your reaction to the trilogy. We'll get into the Simon stuff next, but your reaction
is
to the
Simon.
trilogy.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah. Right. No, he's talking.
Hold on a second.
The question
What's
was,
confusing?
yes, Simon is about the trilogy, but the question that he posed was, what was your reaction when you heard that they're making a new trilogy? That was the question.
I was like, put it with the rest of them. You know, we had David, whatever, the Game of Thrones guys. You have Ryan. You have now supposedly this Simon guy who has made pretty bad movies. So that probably means it's going to get made, which is funny, you know, because it seems like every time we got actual talent, besides like Tony Gilroy, it seems like the ones who are talented leave. The ones who are not so, you know, I'll be nice, you're not as talented or as beloved, they stay. And so that's what's funny about this, like Stephen Knight and Lindelof and all that. My reaction's the same reaction I've had for every single other announcement they've made is, okay, there's a really, really, really high chance this is not going to get made. And because of that, I'm not going to get excited. And that's ridiculous. It should not be that way. I remember a time just not even a couple years ago, a few years ago, when anytime there was an announcement, I'd be very, very excited. But due to their history, it's very valid for me to just, I don't want to say not care, because it's not that I don't care. It's that I can't have a lot of enthusiasm about it because I don't want to get my hopes up. And even then, we'll talk about Simon. It's Simon. Like, the dude is not, he ain't no Christopher Nolan, you know? So.
All right, Ro, what was your reaction to a new trilogy being announced on top of the 4 movies that were announced the year prior?
I mean, pretty indifferent. I didn't care a lot. I'm not looking forward to the Mando Grogu movie. I'm really not looking forward to another Rey movie. And like Palpatine Beans, I mean, I was okay with Rey. She was a great character. I didn't have a problem with her for the most part. What else? This other movie with Mangold, the beginning of the Jedi. I'm curious about that, if that's still going to be made. But as far as announcing any new films, and I know Daisy Ridley, prior to the Kinberg announcement, said, we're going to have an announcement soon. Something's coming. Something's coming. Wait for it. And I think this is what it was. But it's like, who cares? Being a Star Wars fan nowadays, post sale to Disney, is such a weird era that we're in, because everybody says nobody hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans, and there's a little truth to that, but still it's something that we have to kind of navigate through, because we don't hate Star Wars, we just hate bad Star Wars, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating to be in a position where, for those of us, I guess, that lived through, a period of the late 80s, early 90s, that we didn't have any
The
Star
Dark
Wars.
Ages.
The Dark Ages, right? And then now we've got like Star Wars coming out of everywhere. There's Star Wars everywhere. There's series, whatever. And these movies that are supposedly coming out and being announced and canceled and announced again and brought back. And it's like, it's a yo-yo effect that not only affects the franchise as a whole, but it affects the sensibility of fans everywhere. We become, apathetic about news of anything new coming out. Why? Because it gets canceled, or it gets put on the back burner. Directors leave, writers leave, they come back, and you have to ask yourself, like, what is going on at Lucasfilm? What is going on with Disney? This latest article, and one of my tweets is kind of like blowing up. It's like, what are they doing back there? They talk about not knowing what to do, or not coming up with new nostalgia to keep the franchise alive. And I think they're coming at it at an incredibly ignorant and wrong angle. We don't need nostalgia. We just need good stories with great written characters. And unfortunately, they have showed us that they can't do it. Book of Boba Fett was a disaster. The Kenobi series was a bait and switch, and Acolyte, forget about it. So it's not like, I always say, don't tell me who you are, show me who you are. And they've showed us who they are with all these shows that are less than what people want. Mediocrity has prevailed in Star Wars production, from my perspective. The only thing that I'm really looking forward to, because it is a kick-ass series, is Andor season 2. I think that is by far superior writing, production value. They really, thought ahead about what they wanted to say with that series, and it definitely shows.
Yeah, Andor, I feel like, is made by the professionals, and Lucasfilm hired the perfect team with that. And what
interns.
you're feeling, I think, is such common. Well, yeah, they're getting. It's crazy to see, and I made this reference on like Twitter of like the lady who did the Penguin series, and then you see the lady who did the Acolyte series, and you're like, well, how's Lucasfilm getting these situations? And I think with this trilogy right here, we have such an experience with Lucasfilm now. We fans are so used to what's going on with them that we know what's happening. If they had announced this trilogy 5 years ago, the reaction would be a lot different. It'd actually be a lot better. But because we're so used to these cancellations by today, I think the idea of a trilogy being planned by Lucasfilm right now is kind of shocking, especially because at the last celebration they announced three standalone movies: Dave Filoni's Mandoverse, the Rey standalone film directed by Sharmina Bad-Chinoy, which has now been delayed and lost 2 writers, and then you have the James Mangold Dawn of the Jedi. All 3 of these movies are completely set in a different timeline, so they're all standalone movies. So to go from those 3 movies at Star Wars Celebration in April of 2023 to in January of 2024, you had a second Mandalorian movie, which automatically makes these 2 Mando movies clearly a duology. Then you want to make a new trilogy. That's 7 movies right now, today, that are in early development within the past 2 years of being announced. That's a lot of movies, and with Lucasfilm's track record that we know so much, they've lost any goodwill from the fans. So when it comes to this trilogy, I think they really need to sit down and think about this. Like, is this really what you want to do? You got to make sure this is the route you want to go, because a trilogy is going to last at least 6 years if they release it, one, and then 2 years later another, and 2 years later the final one. It needs to not only be released in a timely fashion, you need to know that this is what you want to do before you do it, because a problem Lucasfilm has consistently had with the movies that have been made and the movies that are not being made is that they start and they kind of don't know how to finish things, and they lose traction where it's like, oh, we have a Kenobi series, the scripts are written, wait a minute, we just read the scripts for the first time, we don't like this, we got to rewrite the scripts. You can't do that with this trilogy. You have to have a few years of pre-production with the director. You have to plan this trilogy out, unlike what you did with the sequels. So I think there's a lot of risk with a trilogy like this, and I think Star Wars fans are rightfully so doubtful of Lucasfilm at the moment. Does anyone have anything they want to say about the idea of a trilogy, or do you guys want to get into the Simon Kinberg aspect?
I just want to add on real quick that you talked about the 7 movies, which yes, but don't forget, we also got report from, I think it was Hollywood or maybe it was Deadline, one of the two who are very, very reliable, that Taika's film and
we were going to get into that. Yeah. All 4 of those
I just want to add that, like,
happening.
We're talking about these 7, but no, there's really 9. And
it's actually
still on the table.
It's 11. If we're being really honest with each other, it's 11.
Well, if we're being really honest, it's going to be 2. Okay, 2 movies will get made.
Okay, heard.
One Rey movie and a Mando movie. That's it.
Sounds about right. But let's get into the whole Simon Kinberg aspect of this. This is a writer. He's going to be the writer and producer of this trilogy. He's the one who pitched the idea and got the deal with Lucasfilm. And he does have a history with Lucasfilm. He was a co-creator of Star Wars Rebels. He was a producer and writer on that as well. And he was a consultant for The Force Awakens. So he's writing and producing this upcoming trilogy. And he has kind of a track record in Hollywood of franchises like X-Men and other stuff. And, he's an industry guy. Lunga, when you heard Simon Kinberg was doing this, was your reaction, who the fuck is Simon Kinberg? Or did you know who he was? And like, what are your expectations from him writing and producing this trilogy?
Yeah, first of all, I want to shout out the super chat. Zach Briggs, you're with me, I'm with you, always one, but porn is two. Thank you, Zach
Good
Briggs.
Fucking God. Power
for that, Zach Briggs.
Oh, yeah.
I no lie, it wasn't a name that immediately rang bells, so I did have to look it up. And to be fair, he has twice as many producer credits than he has writing credits. I did pull them up on IMDb just to refresh my memory as well. And it is like a list of, like, there's no middle ground. It's like, there's some stuff he produced that's like great, and some stuff that he produced that's like fucking horrible. And there's no middle ground. And this is as a producer, and as a writer, it's even less. Like, okay, he did, the most recently he's executive producer on the Wolverine movies, or the Deadpool Wolverine movie, and he's on Deadpool movies, which, okay, it's fine. But I don't give a lot of credence to executive producer credits, because a lot of times those are just credits that are just like, hey, you helped us with this, you were in the room, and they toss those things out like candy to people if they were, helpful to the project in any way, be it money or talking to people or whatever the case may be. So it doesn't really mean he had much role in the direction of the film. Producer is a little bit more than an executive producer for me, but yeah, when you look at it, he has done some of the biggest stinkers that in people, Dark Phoenix, of all the X-Men movies, people are like, that was just like the worst of all the X-Men movies. New Mutants, which we saw what happened with that. That was a bad movie. It just, no one cared at all about it. It was just not good at all. So yeah, it gives you pause. It does. But, I've also seen stuff that people are great writers, and then I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. And then I get it, and it's like, the fuck just happened? So because of when you couple what we just talked about with Lucasfilm, it makes you worried. And it also makes you think, you know, like Pebble was talking about, all the good writers, they have problems with rewrites, and then they get over and over, and then they leave. And then this one, what's going to happen? It's going to be there from beginning to end. He's not going anywhere.
Green light from start to finish.
Okay. And I'm really starting to think the writers that they keep or directors that they keep are not people who are the most talented or have the best vision. It's the people who play ball with Lucasfilm the best.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the people who, listen, this is what we want. And if they say, no problem, boss, whatever you say, that's what I'm going to do. And if you're a creative, now I'm not saying you got to be Christopher Nolan where you fight with everybody, but he's Christopher Nolan, right? He gets to do what he wants because he's Christopher Nolan at this point. But at the same time, if you're a creative, you have to push back. You have to say, hey, listen, I think it looks better this way. You guys are the executives. I'm the creative. I've done this. This will be better if we go. So you got to push back a little bit, but so if you're just playing ball just to, hey, I'm working on a big IP. I'm working on an MCU movie. I'm working on a Star Wars movie, because we're seeing this influx of the last at least 10 years. That's what people are doing. It's like, this will make me money. This will get me credits. Even if the movie bombs, you know what? It'll look good with other producers and other people in the industry because you worked on this big tentpole IP film. And that's the problem. And that's, again, which worries me. It doesn't mean the guy can't write a banger. He might be able to. I don't think he could have gotten this far in the industry if everything he does turns to shit, right? He has to do something right at some point. Unless he was going to Diddy parties. I don't know. Maybe that's why he's still around. But
bring out that baby oil.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a worrisome. It's all yours, Papa Memes.
Yeah. I want to kind of branch off on what you said. He seems like he's one of those yes men producers, whatever credit he had on the movies and stuff. I'm looking at this list of movies and stuff, and they are all just big corporate films. And by that, I mean Deadpool and Wolverine. I get people liked it, but no, it wasn't really that good of a movie on an objective level. It was just a very fun fan movie. But if we're talking about like professionalism in cinema, that's not it. Right, but it was still a loved movie. But then you have Dark Phoenix and all that. These are movies that are just corporately made, right? And so that's why he would infuse so well with Lucasfilm, unlike writers like Stephen Knight, unlike, plenty of directors and stuff. It's because they're going to get him in. They're going to tell him what to do. They're going to rewrite his scripts 15,000 times. And then maybe like 20 years later, he'll finally get to actually start producing the movie. I'm with Lunga. I don't want to just say, because he has had bad movies on his resume, that means it's going to be bad. But whenever you look at his history, when you look at Lucasfilm's history, it's not a good match. It doesn't give me much hope because there's a lot going against this than there is going for this.
This is when Goldman being here might have helped, because he would have argued, because this guy did write 74 episodes of Star Wars Rebels.
So part of it, I heard. Yeah.
That's 74 episodes. Yeah. That's more than part of. He has a history with Lucasfilm. He wrote 74 episodes of Rebels. Well, so he's most likely a Filoni guy.
They worked together on that, yeah.
Yeah, Mando and Grogu then. That's the big reason why I do think this movie actually came to fruition, is because it was Dave and John, again, right, who has had that history of Lucasfilm, so they know how it works, and they clearly work, I would say okay together since they're still there. But no, I'm not holding my hopes up for this guy.
What about you, Ro? What'd you think about Simon Kinberg being involved in this?
I'm like Lunga. I had to look him up and kind of look through his resumes and lists and stuff like that. But the one thing that really struck me initially as a good thing is having like one person deal with 3 films. We all have our complaints against the topsy-turvy nature of the authoring of a sequel trilogy, where one director gets his chance to do one story and the other guy comes in and undoes all of that because nobody had like a very, singular plan from beginning to end, and everybody was just tossing their hat in the ring just to see what sticks. So initially I thought, okay, so they're going to get one guy to kind of really, work up a story and a character arcs and all this stuff, and that'll be that. So maybe they were learning from their past mistakes. instead of getting 3 different directors or 2 different directors in the case of the sequel trilogy. But it's interesting. I know somebody, the Jedi of Chicago, mentioned that his screenplay credits have some pretty solid hits. I won't argue that. And again, like Lunga said, I think Rebels is one of those shows in the animated world of Star Wars that is beloved. Everybody loves Rebels and the story and the characters and stuff like that. So there's a chance that hopefully this set of trilogies might be up there as far as writing quality. But it's Disney has this problem even before the sale of Star Wars back in, what year was it, 2015, that 2012. It likes to control the people that are under them. They don't. It's very rare for them to hire, an independent creative that will do his or her thing and then not check in with the mothership. And it's unfortunate. I don't know what's going to happen with this trilogy if it gets off the ground, if it does it. I'm assuming I have a weird feeling that this trilogy is just going to turn into one film because Rey is already all over it. That'll be kind of an interesting thing. Who knows? But I don't know. Again, I'm pretty not excited about any new Star Wars other than Andor season 2. Again, because of what we talked about, canceling and announcing and not following through. It just seems like they are just afraid to hire some quality people to maybe think of a plan to go forward. And I don't get it. I mean, George Lucas handed them a license to print money, and they're just failing miserably.
And isn't that what the whole point of Filoni getting the promotion was? He was supposed to be the light post.
Right, and this might be part of that. Obviously they worked together on Rebels, so this might be kind of like the first step of like let's commit to something, and here it is.
I did want to touch on that too with the whole Dave Filoni aspect, because Simon is an interesting choice because he does have experience inside and outside of Star Wars. With Lucasfilm, he did create Rebels, and he was a writer and producer of that series. He did the X-Men films. He also wrote this corny rom-com that is called This Mean War with Tom Hardy. I actually kind of like it. I know it's really bad, but he has a mixed track record. But he's clearly a professional in the film of, in the field of at least producing film. And I don't love his writing and all the movies that we've seen from him, but I can see the potential and the talent that he has, with that said. So I'm not a fan of like Star Wars Rebels personally. So if you tell me I'm getting a trilogy of that kind of Star Wars, which I find a little corny, I don't think I'm going to like it. But I really don't know which part of Star Wars Rebels was him, Dave Filoni, or the other lady, Carrie Beck. And I'm glad you guys brought up Dave Filoni with this, because I do think Simon Kinberg writing and producing this trilogy, because we were talking about Lucasfilm wanting to play ball with certain people and wanting people to kind of follow their pattern of doing things and the way they want these films to be made. This is a very safe choice for Lucasfilm from their perspective, because it's someone that they have history with, and most importantly, everyone from Star Wars Rebels that created that show has moved up heavily at Lucasfilm. Dave Filoni, who co-created the series and was a series like supervising director, he is now the creative executive over there at Lucasfilm or whatever the hell. Carrie Beck, who had the exact same credentials that Dave Filoni and Simon Kinberg have, she is now in charge of the hiring of the writers and the producers for Star Wars and Lucasfilm. And now you have Simon Kinberg, the third person out of Rebels, who is writing and producing a Star Wars trilogy. So because they've all moved up, they're all going to be working together on this film. And that, for me, actually worries me because I don't like Star Wars Rebels. But from the standpoint of Lucasfilm, this is actually a pretty smart move from what they're thinking for the future, because you have the safe pick of someone that's going to give you what you want and has already worked very well with Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck, who have moved up at Lucasfilm. You're now elevating him to a position where all three of them are going to work together again. I mean, it's not what I would have picked, but I do understand Lucasfilm.
I will say this.
It's a step in the right direction.
About Rebels. Let me just get this out real quick, Pelmies.
Go ahead.
I will say this about Rebels. Yeah, I know how you feel about it only, and I wasn't a huge fan of Rebels, okay, but there was a lot of things I did like in Rebels. But at the end of the day, it's mostly subjective stuff, right? Stuff that we can argue as fans. Oh well, hey, I didn't like how they did it. I don't like the world between worlds, and yeah, we can argue that stuff till the cows come home. But the show was well put together. It was well produced. It did what it was supposed to do. And even if you don't like subjectively, it felt like Star Wars. Okay, it still at least had a Star Wars feel. So we can argue about those little subjective things, here. But so like you said, the safe choice. Maybe this is a big maybe. Maybe that's what we need right now. Okay, maybe we need the safe choice. We don't need the guy who's going to try to break the boundaries of Star Wars. You know what I mean?
Or subvert your expectations.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking son of a bitch, Ryan Johnson. What were you going to say about memes?
Well, I'm kind of similar to what Lunga said. I will say, like, despite me not being very ambitious about this, I will say if what you guys are theorizing with, like, Dave Filoni is the one putting this together, I would be very happy with that, because it's a little baby step in the right direction on how to actually run a movie studio. Is you plan things out and you make teams and you actually take the teams and you have a leader. And it's a first for Lucasfilm post Disney, but it would be nice to see that if it's fulfilled. And if that's the case, we might for the first time actually get some cohesive trilogy. Now, whether it will be a grand slam, whether it will be Andor level good or just Mandalorian level good, what's a very safe show that's just kind of fun Star Wars thing. Either way, I'd be happy, because it's way better than what they've been doing the past decade, which is nonsense. So I can see there being some hope with what's going on here.
I did like what you brought up, Palp memes, and before we move on to the next topic, Ro, I do want to get your take on that. Do you think Dave Filoni had any influence in this decision of bringing Simon in as the writer and producer?
Oh, I definitely do. I will say that I do think that this is the first step in his, control over the creative aspect of things. And it's, is it a safe option? Is it, did they kind of bring in some, experimental creative types behind the scenes to kind of try and do something, and they're now seeing that maybe that's not the right, approach to Star Wars? But and at the same time, we as fans also have to kind of ask ourselves, what can Lucasfilm do to make sure that Star Wars survives another 50 years? We so rigid in our ways that we won't accept any change, any growth from these stories, from these characters, from this franchise. That, I think, is a question that we have to ask ourselves on a personal level, and be be responsive of what we answer to ourselves. But I think this is kind of Filoni's way of kind of putting his right foot forward and trying to see set things right. We'll see. I mean, obviously time will tell. But it is kind of a weird thing. I always wanted to maybe have Star Wars, after the sequels, kind of go in a direction where we're not taken, back to a familiar place, something new, something, something that we can't like argue about because somebody thinks that it broke canon, and I know they tried to do that a little bit with the High Republic series, which was a complete disaster. The book series suffered a almost 95% purchase drop of the books.
Wow, I didn't know
went
that.
way too
yeah.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
After that first 3 books, it started off so strong,
it
and it just tanked. It got
tanked.
bad.
Some of the book sales, it's like 30,000, 12,000, 17,000. It's like, geez, have a garage sale. You'll do better.
Yeah.
But to me, we've got this project that sits very comfortably in the original trilogy time zone ish with Mandalorian. You've got the High Republic stuff that happens a long time ago, even more so than the original trilogy, and then you've got the Rey stories, post sequel trilogy. And I almost feel like, and I've said this, since Rise of Skywalker came out. they don't know where to go. So they develop these projects. They develop these projects in different eras to see where the fans, kind of focus, to see where it is that they are going to take this trilogy. Are they going to go back? Are they going to stay here in the OT era? Are they going to go far in the future? What do the fans want? But I think that's where Disney as a studio is just really disconnected with what the fans want. And I think, something that George Lucas did, way back then was not focus on one aspect of the fandom. He tried to create a more of a universally familiar story that would encompass everyone, not just, one aspect of the fandom.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Are we going to be talking about the nostalgia thing? Because that was a huge comment.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Yeah,
kind of
that's-
at the end.
Okay. I was going to bring it up, but I won't say anything.
Because
No,
yes,
we're
the
good,
next
we're good.
part
I'm-
is
yeah, I'm-
what-
I've said my piece.
We're all teasing towards
We're all there,
what's
right.
coming with
You
that.
know
there's
me,
so
how my
much.
brain
That's
works.
the thing. Pal Memes, I sent you the fucking breakdown of the
Yeah.
show.
Well, I
dude. You
forgot
gotta know.
about it, okay? I
God
forgot.
damn. But yeah, no. Because what Ro brought up about it being a continuation of the side, like that's what's complicated, not only about covering this in a show and everything. There's so much to talk about here, but the aspect of this actually being episodes 10, 11, and 12. The continuation again of the Skywalker saga, of pissing us off again by possibly messing with the canon. That question has remained unclear throughout all of this, all of the news, even from the initial article from Deadline. In the first time he mentions this, he says, I have one source saying that this is going to be 10, 11, and 12, a new trilogy following, Rey Skywalker, basically, or this is going to be a completely different saga. They had conflicting stories on it. Deadline Deadline,
And then a
had
mixture of both.
Variety
It is a
came
new
out-
saga, and Rey's going to be like an Obi-Wan Kenobi.
and then Variety came out, and specifically said that Lucasfilm is denying the idea that this is going to be 10, 11, and 12. And then Hollywood Reporter came out and said kind of the same thing of like, it's a mixed bag of if this will be 10, 11, and 12, or this will be a new saga. So this question of it being 10, 11, and 12, I don't want to go too crazy with it, because we do need to talk about the Rey stuff. We do need to talk about the comments about the future of the brand and Rey being the future. But quickly, with this trilogy that Simon Kinberg is writing and producing, Lunga, should this be 10, 11, and 12?
I love how the super chats come right before it becomes my turn, which is great. So we can actually talk about a super chat real quick.
Oh, yeah. Let's get to those too.
Ask yourself, like Star Wars only, I grew up on Return of the Jedi. Ask yourself, for the good of the fandom, is Rey a Skywalker? From Yes Gunner 94. Thank you, Yes Gunner.
Big shout
And
out
another
to
one came in
everybody.
too. It's from Ray as
look at
well. He said Rey should be a Mace Windu. That's funny he says that, because I remember, because there was some excitement during the sequel trilogy, right? And people were like, who is she? Is she a Kenobi? That was a big prevailing theory, right? She's a Kenobi. Right. She's not going to be a Skywalker. And everyone was talking about Satine, maybe they had an illegitimate kid or something like that, and so yeah, it's funny you just say that. Is she a Skywalker? Again, this debate is never going to end. Is she a Skywalker?
I'll debate it for 3 hours if you want.
All right. Well, Lunga,
I cleared
what
my
about
schedule.
the 10, 11, and 12? Do you want this to be 10, 11, and 12? Should it be?
Not after you told me you're making a...
That should be an easy answer. Come on, Lunga.
No, it's not.
Yes or no?
After you told me that you're making a Rey movie, no, this shouldn't be 10, 11, and 12. What the fuck? And not only told me, showed me the director, have fucking prancing Daisy Ridley out over and over again talking about how it's great, it's great, it's great. I've seen parts of the script that don't exist anymore.
Hey, it's evolving.
Evolving. No, so don't tell me it's 10, 11, 12. After that, okay? And I can't get too deep because this is going to go into the whole nostalgia stuff, because there's more I got to think of that. But
don't be mean.
No, don't tell me it's 10, 11, 12. And when I read it, I did read it as it's a new saga. Okay? Most of that's what they were they were wording it weird, and they were kind of like going back and forth, and that's how I read it. And Goldman, in our Discord is like, no, that's not what they said. They were saying it's gonna be. I'm like, no. If you really look at it, and then the Hollywood Reporter came out clarifying it more. I'm like, no, it looks like it's gonna be a new saga that they may make appearances. And I said in the Discord at that moment, I'm like, she's gonna be like an Obi-Wan Kenobi. And right after that, Snyder popped it out with his little thing that his source is telling him that she's gonna be an Obi-Wan Kenobi type character in that movie. No, you're throwing shit at the wall again. You're just tossing it. Just tossing
Random
it.
bullshit, go.
Yeah. There's a big dartboard. Like it's the biggest fucking dart. It's filling a fucking 8x10 wall. That's how big the dartboard is. And you have javelins, and you're still somehow missing the fucking thing. Okay,
Fucking
It's
land.
not sticking. God dang it! All right, so Palpa memes. Should this be 10, 11, and 12?
No, they already said this is the end of the Skywalker saga. Why the fuck would they do that? That's my answer.
All right, Ro. Should this be 10, 11, and 12?
Fuck no.
It doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. It's fucking ridiculous,
I think the
man.
idea of having 10, 11, and 12 is crazy after not only Lucas saying episode 3 was the conclusion to the saga, and then Disney said after episode 9 that was the conclusion to the Skywalker saga.
Forget the
going
past.
into 10,
Kill it if you have to.
11 and 12. Yeah, literally. It seems like such a bad idea right now. And I think
I don't
after
even
7, 8, 9,
I don't even think the sequel should have been 7, 8, and 9.
I mean, at the time, it seemed perfect. I think that being 7, 8, 9 was perfect for the moment. But I think
We didn't know who
because-
Lucasfilm was at that time.
That's
also
why they
10
got
years
billions of
after the last
dollars
trilogy.
off of
Yeah,
bad
it
hopes.
needs to be a 10-year gap and everything. There needs to be time for nostalgia to kind of build in. And what worked for 7, 8, and 9 is that you weren't nostalgic for episodes 1, 2, and 3. You were nostalgic for episodes 4, 5, and 6. And so you wanted that continuation of the story from 4, 5, and 6. What happened to Luke, Han, and Leia? You don't have that right now with Rey, Finn, and Poe. So to do 10, 11, and 12 right now, it's just as like it's too soon. Plus, I really feel like if you tell someone, hey, Star Wars Episode 12 is coming, then it's gotten to this point where people are like, oh my God, this is the Fast and Furious franchise. They're making a 12th Star Wars movie. I think a lot of people would find it more interesting that this new trilogy is starting with Episode 1. And that's far more interesting to me than the continuing of the story that we've been telling for the past 40 years. We just did the new trilogy. Start a new saga. Tell about talk about characters in a new era, a new timeline or something. Have a trilogy about the High Republic, the Old Republic, the Sith Wars, the Dawn of the Jedi. You could do a Godfather Mafia series, hopefully better than what you did with the Book of Boba Fett or whatever the hell. But you could do so much more with Star Wars than just the same 10, 11, 12. That's just going to immediately, that is just such a turnoff. So I also am saying no, and it feels like.
Well, I want to ask this question real quick. Yes, to us hardcore fans, yes, it's a turnoff. But for marketing reasons, for the general casual audience,
no, I don't
you
think
don't
it's going to
you don't think that'll help.
I don't think so because, like I said, of the Fast and Furious effect of it's so funny life, when you see
but people
in the
still
real
watch
world
those
interacting and
movies,
shit.
man. People still watch Fast and
them,
Furious.
Yes, I know.
Hold on,
but,
Ollie.
but, I mean,
Hold on, Ollie.
Even that's
hold
having
on,
a
hold on.
fading fall.
People are gonna watch the new Avengers movies, but despite Marvel being absolute
But it's
trash
not
right now
titled
because it's
Avengers number 20.
Yes, it is.
Okay?
Well, it's Avengers.
No, it is not.
Name.
Yes, but it's
It's
not
Avengers.
It's phases. They do stuff in
letters,
phases. They do it in phases.
Yes.
That's
Right.
And when you're doing,
it's
but
different from
but there's
Lucasfilm, but still.
But it is different for Star Wars compared to Marvel. Star Wars is taken a little bit more seriously, but confusing the message of this is the conclusion of the 6-film saga. Actually, never mind. This is the conclusion of the 9-film Skywalker saga. Actually, scratch that. This is the conclusion of the 12-episode, the 4 trilogy. That's too much. You need something new. People will accept a new trilogy and a new timeline, a new era being episodes 1, 2. That's the Skywalker saga. This is the Old Republic saga.
general
This is the High Republic
audiences,
saga. This
like
is the
you
Sith
with your
saga.
question, Palpa memes. General audiences. Well, yes, there's some general. They know Darth Vader. They know those names. They know those. Sure, but for general audiences, all they need is that logo, Star Wars.
Well, and
That's
they've
it.
even said in China, one of the biggest issues they had with the sequel trilogy, because you have to remember, the original trilogy did not come in China when it originally released. American films and the Chinese audience have a very different way of releasing films over there. So they asked people in China, what happened with episodes 8 and 9 and episode 7? Like, what was your interest? And they said, well, you're releasing episode 7, and I haven't seen the first 6 films, so it's kind of a lot to come back to Star Wars and say, oh, by the way, we're making episode 10 to someone who may have never seen Star Wars. You're like, are you fucking kidding me? I have to watch 11
And I've
films?
said this.
Like,
Yeah.
Think about every major IP, and we've over the how long we've been doing Chatooine? 3 years. Over the 3 years, I've brought this up multiple times, and hardcore Star Wars fans think, no, that's crazy. But every other major IP has done it, and everyone's fine with it. Reboot.
no.
Okay,
No, I'm,
Star Trek-
Nope.
Star Trek has been rebooted.
I don't want to get into this
It has.
conversation because this is going to be a
It
whole
has.
tangent.
You see?
I already
You
know.
see?
No
I already know.
reboot, no reboot, no
Yeah,
reboot.
no.
No. When
reboot.
hold on. When I say reboot, I'm not saying remake episode 1, 2, 3. I'm not saying go with Luke and that's not what I mean by reboot.
No, I don't want
What I
to
mean by reboot, reset. Did you see what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say is that not forget about that stuff. It was there. Okay? Here. From the Star Trek, from the original series to the Next Generation. You see what I'm saying? That was like a reset. They're like, okay, you know what? We know this stuff happened. We might bring it up every now and then. But look, this is so many years in the future. It's Star Trek, but it's a whole, the universe is different.
But that's what we're asking for
is
with this new. That if they did the High Republic trilogy, that is a reset. That is something, different era, different timeline, different characters, and all that. They can do that, but that's going to be a whole side conversation of itself because I am anal about that. But before we move on to the big aspect of the future of Lucasfilm and everything, a very important question before we leave this topic about this new trilogy and the production and all that stuff. My big question to this is, and I want to start with you, Ro, and then we'll go to Pal Memes, Lunga, and then me. Who's going to direct this trilogy? Who do you think should direct this trilogy? That's a big aspect here. So, Ro, give me your takes of what do you want from the director of this trilogy?
Wow. I don't know who would direct, but as far as any director, one of the reasons that one of the qualifications that I would have for any director is obviously to take the source material seriously. The fact somebody what did they say about Johnson there? Yeah, whatever. I don't know. Take the source material seriously. Make sure that obviously visually it looks like Star Wars, but I think there has to be a sense of, one of the biggest reasons I did not enjoy The Last Jedi is that they tried to insert so much like MCU type humor, self-aware humor that just does not work in Star Wars.
They fly now.
They fly now, yeah. But it's for me, I like my science fiction and superhero movies, dark and gritty. I like the seriousness of these films when they do come out, the series when they're serious and they give you kind of like an eye-opening awe in how they treat the story and the characters, because it's like, it's something that we're familiar with, and it's a world that is very unique in the annals of filmmaking. It's George did an amazing job with setting up the universe and kind of telling a story within that sandbox. And when directors come in and kind of mess things up, like Rian Johnson did, it obviously, besides dividing the fandom, I mean, it just kind of waters down the importance of the saga. And I might be, that might be a hyperbole, but I think it's true. I think all the Star Wars that we've gotten, up to this day really has, Liam Neeson said it. There's too many Star Wars. It seems like it's all watered down now.
You're going to become only his best friend because that's his favorite
I've
line.
said that for years. And even what you said earlier about mediocrity, I've said for years, even to prequel fans, you guys in the Star Wars fandom have this new obsession with just accepting mediocrity simply
and that's
because
dangerous.
it's called Star Wars.
Right, and that's dangerous because, we love a thing doesn't mean that we have to like accept it and swallow it every time the logo pops up and saying this is the greatest thing ever.
You gotta love the acolyte. What's the matter with you? You
Exactly.
gotta love it.
Power of many.
Yeah.
The power of many, absolutely. Palpa Memes, when it comes to the director
Super
of
chat.
this potential trilogy. Oh, what did it say? I apologize.
Zach Briggs, I'm tired of the horrible quippy Marvel-esque humor that was so apparent in the sequel trilogy. It ruined tense moments.
Yes.
And one quick thing on that.
That is the thing.
Yeah. What Ro brought up, gritty. And see, it's real quick, those of us that are older and the people who like the older stuff, because you guys like you're young, you like the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
What was like back then? The original trilogy wasn't considered gritty. You know what I mean? It was considered older. Listen, old people in the 70s were like, "What's this kid shit?" That's how they saw it. Okay, it was the younger people that really got into Star Wars. You know, and the people who are in their 20s and late 20s and stuff like that, and kids. But the way we've seen movies develop, and the way we've seen how Hollywood realizes there's more money in movies if you attract families, and they started leaning more into this stuff. So where to us, it appeared like it's not gritty anymore because of that. Where it was back then, it was just normal. It wasn't like they weren't like doing something like making it dark. You know what I mean? And all we're saying is try that again. And people nowadays
like
think
that
that, oh, you like
world
this,
building.
you like this dark, gritty shit. The families don't want to see that, and that's a problem. Studios look at the dollar bills and they want to check families, and that and
to be
they
fair,
go hard on
J.J.
it.
Abrams with not the Last Jedi, the Force Awakens, that did have a real lived-in feeling where you could touch everything that is going on in that film. That was a nice feeling about it, and that's why the directors of this stuff do matter, because J.J. went in with that intention. And so Palpamemes, when it comes to the director of this Simon Kinberg written and produced trilogy, who do you want for a director of this, if anybody, or what do you want from a director?
It's a tough question because there's a lot of like variables that are going on in my head right now. It's like there's the question of who do I want? Well, if I could like choose any director to direct 3 Star Wars movies, I mean, I could name off a few names like Christopher Nolan, for instance. But if we look at like the actual like the layers of how a director directs a Star Wars movie, it's like, to me, almost at this point with the way Lucasfilm makes their movies and stuff, it doesn't really matter because we can have some really, really great directors, but dealing with Lucasfilm, they might not be able to do their greatness. And so it's hard for me to be like, I mean, the biggest thing's obviously, Ro kind of put it out, like someone who like genuinely loves Star Wars, someone who loves it and respects the source material. But at the end of the day, a lot of that goes on to the writing and producing and stuff. So, you know, in a perfect world, we would have one single director for these 3 movies, but we do live in Lucasfilm's world where they're going to go through 5,000 directors, and then they're going to go through 3 directors to make all 3 movies, and that's what I expect, unfortunately.
That's probably not gonna happen with this one.
I don't know. I don't know. I guess the chances are a little bit lower of that happening, but
I really think, and the more we talk about, I really think this is a Filoni thing, and I think they gave him the ball. And it's his team, his people, and this is going to happen.
Well, maybe he's wanting to direct them. Maybe he's hiring Simon. He's going to do his one movie.
That could be a potential
and
thing with it. Longo, what is your take on the directing for this trilogy?
The directing. What was the exact question? Because
the question is who would you want to direct this trilogy? Yeah, who would you want to direct?
Oh, who'd
this
I want?
If anybody. Or what do you want?
I hate that. I'm real bad with that. I hate that whole, who's your dream director stuff? Because while I know directors and I know what they do, I'm not that kind of guy that's like, this is who I want to direct something. You know, someone said in the chat, because that was your crazy ass, James Cameron for Star Wars. I don't want James Cameron to do Star Wars. I even said once, listen, I don't want fucking Scorsese doing Star Wars. You know, like, I'd love Scorsese doing Star Wars. No. No, it's not his. This is not his sandbox.
Be an honor.
No, it would be dumb. You'd have 90-year-old Robert De Niro as a Jedi. Talking to me? You talking to me? That's what would happen in it because he puts him in everything. So it's no.
And it's funny because we're not saying that, you know, you have to be a Star Wars fan to be able to direct these things or write these things, because, you know, honestly, if you take a look at the history of Star Wars and who's done them, I mean, some of the best Star Wars are written and directed by non-Star Wars fans. You've got Empire Strikes Back. You've got the Gilroy.
You just have
Irvin
to
Kershner.
You just have to have respect for the vision and a knowledge of the IP. Just look back and that's it.
Tony Gilroy did that perfectly, and for me, the director is going to be one of the biggest aspects of this. Personally, the way I look at this trilogy potentially being good, and the question with Lucasfilm is going to be: is this going to be one director, or is this going to be 3 different directors? Because if it's one director, what you're going to need is a commitment for at least 5 years, which Lucasfilm does not have a lot of the time commitment like that from almost anybody.
I don't see Kinberg's resume. I don't see Kinberg's calendar being filled with much shit. So I think
Kinberg. Kinberg? Do you talk about the writer and producer for this? Yeah, no. I'm not saying that. Well, first of all, he does have 2 things that he's doing immediately. But I'm saying for a director, you need someone who is going to commit, a good 5 years of their time to doing a trilogy if you have one director. If you have 3, we're back into the sequel aspect of, okay, well, what's going to happen here? They all going to know, there's
Favreau.
Lunga said earlier and everything. Well, that's an option for sure. I don't think he would do this. So I think I would not want him to do the specific one. I'd want a little bit more talent involved on the writing aspect. But you do need someone like that, like you mentioned earlier, Lunga, of someone.
Did you say you want more talent on the writing aspect when it comes to Favreau? Are you fucking kidding me right now?
You said Favreau doing this Simon Kinberg. Favreau wouldn't be writing it; he'd be directing it. He's not
right, but if he's in but if he's in direction of it, and he has Simon, because remember what the writer hands you is the director is usually not exactly what the director.
I get that.
Changes
shit. I still would rather have someone better than Simon Kinberg handing the script over to Jon Favreau to improve upon. This is not the team that I would want for a Jon Favreau. But Jon Favreau is someone who is willing to play ball, and Lucasfilm has directors like that now that I think they could go in-house. They did this with James Mangold. He did Dial of Destiny, and now he's getting his own Star Wars movie because he can play ball with these kind of big brands like Lucasfilm, and we see that with Simon Kinberg of playing ball with Lucasfilm, and now he's getting his own trilogy. So Lucasfilm is going to look for a director or 2 or 3 that are willing to work with them and by their rules. And I think, like I said, they should stay in-house for this trilogy. I think you should have one director, and I think it should be someone like Rick Famuyiwa. I really think he deserves a chance. And if you don't want to do that, and if they want to do their a woman director for a trilogy,
talked about
that would be a first thing. Bryce Dallas Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard. Someone said that in the chat too.
Or hang on, let me pitch you one last one before I get out of here. I say you let Ron Howard have a real crack at this son of a bitch. I say you give Ron Howard a fucking trilogy. He knows Lucas.
Ron Howard
could do it. His daughter's still in the
Dean
company.
Howard.
I think Ron Howard would be a fucking, especially in the time that Star Wars is in right now. You need someone like Ron Howard who not only vividly remembers when Star Wars was coming out, but has exactly what you need for a director of Star Wars. You need a director who is going to sell this film. That's a problem with a lot of these Star Wars projects right now, I feel like, is because I think we all kind of forget what happened with Episode 7. People, were excited for more Star Wars movies, but we all knew what George Lucas had done with it 1, 2, and 3, and the common conception for Episode 7 was like, oh, well, this time it's not George. So when they announced J.J. Abrams was doing Episode 7, that really sold a lot of people who were skeptical on Episode 7. Like, I remember when that was announced, a lot of people gave like a sigh of relief, like, oh, okay, JJ's doing it, So I think we want someone who's professional and has a track record that can impress everyone. And I think Lucasfilm really needs to do that when picking a director. If they pick like a Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy for this trilogy, it's done. I'm sorry, like you fucked up. It's too late. But you pick someone like a J.J. Abrams, like a Ron Howard, Rick Famuyiwa.
Man,
I
listen,
feel like you got a real strong
we've said this so much over and over. It's like you pick. And again, I don't want to say the safe choice, but you pick the directors that can handle that kind of stuff, right? And like when they first started the whole Star Wars story stuff, I'm like, this could be a good idea, right? But they've dropped the fucking ball. They fumble everything because of everything. But here's the thing: if you have the Ron Howard type caliber people doing your mainline stuff, right? Then you could have your artsy fartsy fucking Ryan Johnsons and Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy doing these little stories on the offsides. Because if your main story's fine, people would watch those, and if they don't like it, and go, yeah, they really didn't care about it. But you know what? It was a Star Wars story. It was an offshoot. It was a little story, blah, blah, blah. But the main movies are good. But this is get into the last thing with the nostalgia and that article and everything, which is their mentality is
that's the next topic, yeah.
But that's the question too that you brought up. Why? When we watched The Mandalorian, we're like, these directors, they got a group of directors on this show that are just fucking bangers, man. Except for fucking Ramirez. Okay, Ramirez?
Oh, Robert Rodriguez, yeah.
Robert Rodriguez, sorry.
Had
Robert Rodriguez, sorry.
Honestly.
Yeah, Robert Rodriguez, okay, with the Book of Boba. which again, he planned it out in his backyard with toys. So I mean, that's maybe why that happened. But you had such good directors on it, and to be honest, I really didn't like his episodes that much in Mandalorian either. But you had these good directors, and they're doing nothing with them. Why haven't we seen a name like Bryce Dallas Howard or Famuyiwa coming up for the movies? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's a good question, but I think we should move on to the big one, the big news, the one that Palpamemes has been foaming at the mouth over there, just waiting to sink his teeth into this topic. So the news from the Hollywood Reporter came out saying that Lucasfilm is uncertain on what their future is and kind of believes that Rey is going to be the best choice for the movies. A lot of sources were saying like different things, like, oh, you know, they're banking on nostalgia, but they're running out of nostalgia to sell. They're saying that Rey is the only character they think that can really bring the movies back. So the idea at the moment, and just to give you a little bit of context before, I'm going to let Palpamemes go first on this one, mind you. This new trilogy theoretically could be about Rey being an older Kenobi type. And they were also saying that it really depends on what movie comes out first. If the Sharmino Bachinoy movie comes out first, that's going to set how the Rey story is going to go. If the trilogy comes out first, that's going to set things. But basically, you're getting a Rey movie from Sharmino Bachinoy, potentially a trilogy where Rey is the Obi-Wan type. And don't fucking forget Sean Levy, who just did Deadpool and Wolverine. His Star Wars movie is also rumored to have an older Rey. That's 5 Star Wars movies with Rey Skywalker. She says it like that, right? Skywalker.
Yeah.
So Palpamemes, because I love.
Would you stop with your hate on women with British accents? You just have this hate on women with British accents.
I just hate the way she says fucking Skywalker.
You hate the way most British women say Skywalker, because that's how they say it. That's how British people pronounce shit.
That's not true. I saw a British girl within the past year who had a sexy ass.
Depends what part of Britain they're from. Depends on what part of the UK they're from. There's, they have different accents.
I'm a dumb American. I can't tell you the difference between Britain and London and the UK. Okay, all right, or England or all of that shit. You know, it doesn't matter. It's not American, so I don't care.
Yeah, weed and beer. That's what you know.
Palpamemes. Back to the subject. What is your thoughts on Rey potentially being the future of the brand?
The biggest problem with Rey, and I say this as someone who does like her, but I wouldn't consider her a good character. She's a very convoluted character. Her foundation was okay, had good potential, but it didn't really go anywhere. And that's ultimately the problem, is like, what is she going to bring to these stories outside of the most baseline level of, I'm the new Jedi Master? That's the biggest thing. Like with Kenobi, it worked because, you know, he raised Anakin, right? And so that was like the biggest thing. Yes, we didn't know that at the time the original trilogy came out, but whatever. It's still the story, but it's opposite. We have to take in consideration who Rey's as a character, but now is because we've already seen those stories, so it does matter what happens going forward. And I really don't know. I don't have any strong thoughts on it other than I'm not really excited that we are just continuing on this next timeline. I always thought of the Rey movie. I always thought it would be a good idea to have this Rey movie be like a one-off movie of like almost like an epilogue to the Skywalker saga. And I always thought that would be a really nice way to, okay, you know, episode 9 did really wrap things up, but we're going to see what Rey does and stuff, blah, blah, blah. Maybe get some more stuff with Finn. And it's just weird me saying this now that as a big Rey fan that like I'm not super keen about it. Because even though I don't really care about the High Republic, I would much rather them do a High Republic trilogy with good writing, mind you. I would rather them do an Old Republic trilogy, right, where the writing is already there. We already have the storyline that everyone fucking loves, right? And for them to sit there and say that that Rey is the only piece of nostalgia they have left, I mean, it just, or what? No, they didn't use that. What was the term they used? They used a different term for
like
Rey.
She is like the
a core element.
They said
a weapon.
The shelf. The shelf is
the
bare.
weapon, and they're out. Yeah, they in the Hollywood they said that she's their only weapon they have left in their arsenal. I'm just like, I'm sorry. This is the Kathleen Kennedy. We don't have source material all over again, because I'm like, what the fuck are they smoking? There are so many beloved characters and stories in Star Wars that have already existed. Like at this point, man, just do those. Just use those. It's not that difficult. And someone made a really, really good comment. They were like, how come the EU and Legends and stuff had so many just fantastic storylines and all of that? Well, it's a little bit easier because there's books and, you know, it's a little bit easier to make a bunch of books and stuff. But it's like, Why do we have to continue the same pattern? Why are we continuing on with 10, 11, 12? Which, I'm sorry, even if they don't call it that, if you are continuing 4 or 5 movies of Rey, yeah, that's 10, 11, and 12. That's still the Skywalker saga, right? You're still going to have those Force ghosts in there. You're going to have probably Finn in there. I would at least hope Finn would be back. But it seems like a waste of what the talent and money, I guess I should say, because we know Lucasfilm hasn't really made much money, could go to instead of a Old Republic trilogy, something like that.
This is what we waited for. This is what he's chomping at the bit. That's what we waited for.
I really thought he was going to give us something meaty there, but it's okay. Ro, you're the guest. So you're going to deliver.
Tired.
I know. Ro, what do you think about the idea of Daisy Ridley's Rey being potentially in 5 Star Wars movies, but just kind of being the future of the brand at this point?
A little bit ridiculous, but a little bit on the safe side. They described the original trilogy as being the Old Testament, and the Rey and these new stories to be the New Testament. And I think it's kind of a bit of a, I don't know, lopsided way of thinking of it, especially when in the same sentence they're talking about, we don't have any nostalgia left for us to kind of go back to and create new content. It's weird. I say it's safe because, obviously, folks liked The Force Awakens. Folks liked Rey as a character. She's got, everybody talks about her problems and taking on the Skywalker name. But I think, it was kind of inevitable after the sequel trilogy to at least, sit down at a table and say, well, where do we go from here logically? And not from a fan perspective, let's do High Republic or New Republic, let's go, EU. Where do we go from here? We made these new movies, what's the next step? And unfortunately, the next step is just to continue the story of Rey and how she sets up a new Jedi Order and this and that. It's just like the logical progression, I guess.
Safe is the best word I think to use for this, because you're right. It's like, it's going to be so baseline. It's going to be so maybe predictable, it's the new Jedi Order, which we want to see. I don't disagree that they should make that. We want to see that, but what potentially 5 flipping movies in creating nostalgia. You don't create nostalgia. You make things, and then nostalgia comes from those things in due time. It's a natural process. You can't. And this someone made a really, really good comment. They were like, this is the difference, because under George Lucas, it was George Lucas and his team, right? In their little house. Not little house, it was a pretty big house, but, a whole ranch. Whereas this is a corporation. Yeah. And this is it's so fucking corporate. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I've tuned out from Star Wars. It's just corporate now. It doesn't feel like it's made with true love and ambition. Because ultimately, you can't do that in a corporation. You have to abide by corporation logic and standards, if you want to call it logic, with how they're handling Star Wars. I certainly wouldn't, but and
it's funny because George Lucas warned the world about this, about films being 100%.
Corporate. Yeah.
And no one. Can I get my turn now, Pep Williams?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Can I have my turn now?
We're gonna go.
I got to take a breath here. Okay. I don't want to yell.
What are you passing gas or something?
I don't want to yell. Listen, there's one takeaway from this. Is they're talking about how they want to create nostalgia, and the line that Palpatine, I think, was looking at is the source says she's the most valuable cinematic asset, in some ways maybe the only one Star Wars has, right? And if the franchise wants to look forward in the canon timeline, all those beloved characters, Luke, Leia, Vader, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Han, they're all dead. And their storylines are wrapped up. And the closet is a little bare. Well, maybe the closet wouldn't be a little bare if you didn't decide to make a new sequel trilogy. You had a gold mine. Okay? I'm not one of those EU guys that says you needed to adapt the EU. I'm not saying that. But you had this expansive universe that follows these characters. And I'm not even talking about following them for 50 years. Okay? Following them for 10 to 15 years, with 20 years, which is the difference between the OT and the sequel trilogy. Okay? You had a gold mine. You could have used some of these stories, part of them, taken it, adapted it, make it yours. You could have played with Luke Skywalker, Leia, Han. You could have played with all these characters. You could have had him build a new Jedi Order. You could have introduced it to Mara Jade or make your own Mara Jade if you want.
They didn't plan that far ahead. No one thought
You
that
had,
far
don't
ahead.
tell me they didn't plan that far ahead when you planned enough to have Luke Skywalker be an old fucking man alone on a planet and wrap around a story about trying to find him from a map. Don't give me that bullshit.
Drop the mic. Drop the mic.
I said I didn't want to yell only. You baited me on purpose because you know you feel the same way as I do, motherfucker.
We've been
ask
saying
you
it
guys.
for years.
Let me ask
You
you. this
no,
question.
shut up. Shut up. Not done yet.
Oh, sorry.
You could have had a whole trilogy just covering 5 years of Luke building a new Jedi Order. That's a trilogy right fucking there. And then if you go into his children and Han and Leia's children, that's another fucking trilogy. And then you could have had so, and that would, and that wouldn't even have been necessarily even the whole 20 years between your sequel trilogy. You could have made those, and then you could have had your Reys and your Finns and your Poes and did anything, and then build those movies off of the sequel trilogy you made that came after the original gold mine you just bought. You could have still made your movies the way you wanted to. Don't tell me you needed inclusion of a strong female character when you could have had the fucking strongest female character in the history of Star Wars, Mara Jade, right there. That could have been just as strong as fucking Rey.
Fucking hold up.
Okay? Just as strong as Rey, if not stronger than Rey. Okay? And again, I'm not saying they had to use Mara Jade. They could have made up their own Mara Jade. They could have made up their own character, have a different background. She didn't have to be the Emperor's hand, all that. They could have made up their whole different thing for her. Okay? But you could have had that right fucking there. You had it all. And you could have used that to build upon your new trilogy, which would have been Rey Skywalker and all this other shit. You could have had her take the legacy, take the name Skywalker. She meets his kids. A lot of the kids die in the books. You could have had the Jason and Fall and all this other shit. And then there's only one kid left and she takes over from that. And you have an old Leia. And then you could have had her take the name because the family fell apart after all this shit. If you made that, I'm fine with the family falling apart. I'm fine with the grumpy Luke. If you showed us this dramatic trilogy of what happened to that family and everything that they went through and building a new order. And
it's in a comic. It's in a comic book. Go get the comic book.
Oh, I remember the comics.
You know what I mean? And again, I'm not even saying, again, at the end of the day, not using those exact lines. You could have made it your own, okay? You had it. And now you're going to tell me the closet's a little fucking bare when you did, what you did is your family is sitting at the table waiting for fucking dinner. You took out 3-year supply of food, threw it in the garbage can, brought out 1 can of fucking cream corn and sat it on the fucking table and says, there you go. That's what you got to eat for the next 10 years.
That's their arsenal. That's what they got. That's their cinematic weapon.
You
Their
made
asset.
the closet fucking bare. You did that to your fucking self. And now you're crying because your race, your sequel trilogy didn't create enough nostalgia to interest people? I wonder fucking why. And the answer is simple, and we've all said it. And you do not have to be a professional fucking writer to do this, to come to see the writing on the wall. Make a new trilogy. Start over with your own stuff, new stories, new characters. Do it. Get your director, get your writer, make a plan, stick with it, and do it.
Peter Jackson. That's my answer from the old question.
All right, that's a solid pick. Ro, what were you gonna say?
Well, I wanted to bring some additional insight that may or may not be valid at this point. Obviously, I do not work for Lucasfilm, as far as you guys know, but it's one of the things that I feel that is preventing Disney going back and revamping expanded universe material, besides just picking and taking little things from here and there, but just completely coming in and taking an EU book and saying, we're going to make a movie about this, is that to pay these people any more than they have to. All that stuff was pre-sale, and those contracts are done. They don't want to go back to the drawing board and pay Timothy Zahn another couple of $100,000.
They are paying him to do a whole bunch of shit now. So
yeah. But I understand
all these stories from the expanded universe with all these other writers that a lot of fans are really latched onto. From a business standpoint, if I pay almost $4.5 billion for something, I don't want to pay another penny for something new that didn't come with that original deal. I'm going to want to create my own thing. I want to be able to create my own stories, so I don't have to pay those other writers to
because they were licensed, even though whatever the publishing, Lucasfilm Publishing, it was called at the time.
But
even though they owned the books, they would still have to pay writers royalties and stuff like that because it was licensed stuff. It wasn't produced by Lucasfilm.
And that's one of the biggest reasons that Star Wars Land in Disneyland is all new stuff, new order, new.
Well, hold on. They could have did original trilogy. They own that. I'm sorry.
No,
Let's not.
But Kathleen Kennedy specifically said is that they wanted it to be the new stuff because yet again we're talking about nostalgia here and everything like that with like the sequels. They wanted to build a place where you could visit that is kind of in the movies and in the setting of the movies.
Three
that are coming out now.
spokes. So you have the original trilogy area, the prequel trilogy area, the sequel trilogy area.
We know what could have been done with Galaxy's
Edge. How fucking hard is that?
We know. We've talked about that for years at this point. But with the Rey being the future and everything like that, and what we were just talking about, the problem with the whole nostalgia aspect of it is you didn't build that nostalgia with 7, 8, and 9 for Rey. And what they're going to end up doing, and I don't know if I've only been saying this for the past couple years on this show, or me and Lunga have been driving this home on the show, of what this new Rey movie and the continuation of the Rey storyline, just the standalone film by itself, all that is going to be is like a validation for Rey. Kind of like Clone Wars was for the prequels. Actually, the prequels really weren't that bad. Look what we had with the Clone Wars. It makes the prequels better. You aren't going to have that with the sequels unless you do something else. You know? What? Am I lagging out?
Oh, yeah, you lagged out. I think you're back. Are we in sync?
Am I back? Us? I don't know. I hear you.
Oh no.
You're good. You're good. You're fine on my end.
All right, I'll leave and let you guys discuss and then come back.
Yeah, no, there's a delay. He's lagged, guys. Let
slow,
him
guys.
He's come
slow.
Back.
Slow only.
Slow only.
I'm sorry to the audience if they're expecting a big meltdown reaction or whatever they were expecting, but I just.
But yeah. Oh, and just to clarify, I think I said it multiple times, bro. Like I said, I'm not saying they had to adapt the EU, but the one thing, and I know this just from a lot of dealing with what being a writer and reading my books and comic books and talking to people that write comic books and this and that. And D&D and stuff. The skeleton of the story, you don't have to pay them shit for the skeleton of a story. You can take the skeleton of a story, insert your own new characters, switch it up, change it up a little bit, change the way things move, and it's now original content. And it's not, and you don't have to pay them shit for it. And again, like I said, it could be all new. Just do a trilogy following the actual Skywalkers. You skipped 20 years
to say with that too,
for no reason.
Is that I think they're scared to commit to anything like that. I think they're scared to commit to anything in the EU, like Sith-wise, because if you had said, like now they have a situation with the Acolyte, that story's never going to be, getting a season 2, but now it is forever officially canon that Darth Plagueis taught Chimere. That is a story that happened. That is something that kind of has to be, you have to follow that forever now.
I just said for the 20th time. You don't have. I'm not saying adapt the fucking EU. I'm saying do a story.
I'm not saying, hang on. You're misunderstanding what I'm saying here. You're misunderstanding what I'm saying here. It's not. It doesn't matter about what the fuck they're adapting the story from. The story itself they are scared to commit to. That is what they did with the sequel trilogy. It is literally a reset of the original trilogy. And the problem with that is there's no interest in the sequel trilogy because it's exactly what we had from the original trilogy. People don't want Rey building the Jedi Order. Hang on,
Don't
let me
tell
get
me
my
they're
point across
scared.
here. Hey, hang on, let
They
me get my
gave
point
us
across
Luke's
here.
history
You've
in
been
the
going,
sequel
no, you've
trilogy.
been going on
This
for
is
a
what
rant.
happened.
Let me get my rant in. You've been going on forever. Let me get my rants in. They cannot do they cannot do the same thing they did with the sequel trilogy where they have exploration of this past generation of characters. So in this 10, 11, and 12, it's going to be about Rey and not about these new characters because then you're not nostalgic for that. But then they are in this other situation where they aren't going to do anything with the Sith. They haven't done anything with the old stuff that came before the Skywalker saga. They haven't really done anything with the dark side or the Force. They haven't explored a lot of this mythical stuff because they're scared to commit to one thing. So when you are in a situation like Lucasfilm where you just kind of keep doing the safe route, let's talk about Boba Fett. Let's do a little bit more with the Ahsoka, but let's not really touch on anything all that important like the Force or the dark side like the Sith and the Jedi Wars and all that. You're in the situation now where you actually have to make something new, original, and unique. And because they haven't been doing that, they've just been building on quicksand. So that's my problem with this idea of them
As the
adapting
Acolyte
expanded
fans,
universe stuff.
that was really unique.
Yeah, that was extremely unique. But yet again, the problem with that is now that you have made this story very canon, and they have had issues making things canon and sticking with them. Because when you make it canon, you have to. That's the Bible now, and they won't do anything
Darth
like that because they don't
Pennywise.
have any plans.
The fucking Pennywise, bro.
It's fucking annoying.
Creeping around in his
Fucking
stupid CGI outfit.
So, quick yes or no from everybody before we get to the last thing and close out the show. Yes.
Did
or
we
no,
ask? Did Ro talk on this?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
Palp memes. And
Sorry,
it was
my
him,
rant.
and-
I got fired up. I forgot who talked and who didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
ahead.
You know, everything turns red and all that shit, and you forget where you're at. It's okay. Yes or no, Ro, and then we'll go Palp memes, then Lunga, and then me, so we can just keep it going in a clockwise action of yes or no. Should we get more Rey Star Wars? Should that be the future?
First of all, I want to make sure that Lunga's okay. Are your nipples bleeding?
I'm good. They're fine. They're fine. Hold on.
Check. Just check for us. Just make sure.
Yeah, they're.
All right, good. Should Rey be the future of Star Wars? Like I said, I think I think it's Disney's safe bet. I don't know. It's they've proved time and time again that that there's no direction, but I feel like this is just kind of a safe ho hum type of thing for them to be able to do that. I mean, Daisy Ridley's she's easy on the eyes. She's like I said, Rey was fine. I didn't have a major problem with her. She's Daisy Ridley is a fine actress. She can hold her own. I don't know. It's as far as the future of Star Wars, I don't know what the future of Star Wars holds because Lucasfilm doesn't know what the future of Star Wars holds, and I think that's the big problem there. Touching on what Lunga said regarding their fear of really committing to anything, I think it really does show. I think obviously they watch the socials and they kind of see what fans are in and out of when it comes to Star Wars. Obviously, this last incarnation of a TV series that went nowhere. The Acolyte kind of demonstrates the fact that I don't want to say that even us as fans are afraid to see something new. I think the Acolyte had some very interesting concepts that were embedded in there. I think it's just the execution that was piss poor, poorly done. But I don't know. Is Rey the future of Star Wars? I think Rey is going to be the future of Star Wars because, like I said, there's no other logical place to take the sequel trilogy post Rise of Skywalker other than just continuing that story of setting up a new Jedi Order. What we get after that, who knows? This might be the time where, we do get a story set, 100, 200, 500 years after Rise of Skywalker to see what's going on with the Jedi, what kind of new villains we have or that sort of thing. So I don't know. like it or not, I think Rey is going to be the future of Star Wars to get to that point, to get outside of the familiar. But you guys are absolutely right. You know, there's no nostalgia. There's no nostalgic feeling for elements of the sequel trilogy. You know, but I do feel like it's too early to tell. I think, you know, us older guys that are knee deep in OT, you know, we have that because there's so many years of us talking about it and living it. You know, I always say on the podcast, if you cut me, I bleed Star Wars. I think the generation of the sequel trilogy is not there yet, and we probably will see, you know, some diehard sequel trilogy fans because, you know, it is Star Wars is a generational thing, whether you like it or not, whether some of the
Took 20 years for the prequels.
Yeah. I mean, we're still at the precipice of kind of finding out what is going on with the sequel generation of Star Wars. There are, you know, younger kids that completely enjoy those films, and I'm not gonna take that away from them because, you know, like religion and politics, Star Wars is a very personal thing.
Palpa memes. That was beautifully said. I don't know how you're gonna follow it up.
I can't beat it. The question is the question, should she or will she? Because I kind of got both.
Yeah, should she be the future of the franchise?
I think I think she should be a future, and that's my biggest problem with what's going on. Is I'm 100% down for more stories with Rey, especially because the idea of getting like Finn and stuff, and like, you know, whatever comes with that. I think she should be a route they take for the future of Star Wars, but considering her the future is terrifying because for me the future, and I'm you know, sound like a broken record, but I'm going to reiterate, I feel like the future of Star Wars should be like, let's say 6 years of 3 movies every 2 years, and it's like an Old Republic thing, right? The future of Star Wars, I think, should be a new direction from what they've been doing this whole time, which clearly hasn't really worked out for them long term. But you could do that, have like an Old Republic thing be the future, and it could be a High Republic. My point is a new saga. But then you also have, we also have like a Rey thing going on. I'd be way more on board. But the wording of this article from these Lucasfilm employees is terrifying, because if these people genuinely feel like they're cornered, and Rey's in that corner, and that's all they have, that's their only way out, what are they smoking? I mean, like, how do you come to that conclusion that Rey, the character that, being genuine, most fans just didn't really care for, the character that was a complete fucking mess in writing, right? How is that the only option you have? Not all these other characters that people did like in the EU, people do, you know. Why Rey? There's no actual answer. It just seems like it's dart. It's exactly the dart analogy. They have a big wall of fucking dartboard. They're throwing javelins at it, and they still don't stick. And that's it. And they say, "Well, this is all we have." It's like, no, it's not. It's because you're just looking at this one wall.
But it's, you know what? It's a wall that they control. It's a wall they own. It's
and that's what it comes down to.
Right.
They made Rey, and that's great. Do more with Rey. I think they did a pretty poor job with her the first 3 movies, but hey, they still her character. You can do whatever the hell you want, right? It's not like a legacy character, and that might be another thing. That may be screwed. They might be scared to screw over another legacy character, and so they do feel cornered because the fans are bad. The fans are toxic. You know, I think that could be it too. They just can't mess up Rey. Fans can't hate what they do with Rey because there's very few fans of Rey, and it's their character. You know, unlike something like, say, they do a Revan trilogy, or, you know, something that would be actually interesting.
Lunga?
I was fine as I can be when they announced the Rey movie. Here's the thing. Like it or not, when we say is the future of Star Wars is a loaded phrase, okay? Is she the entire future of Star Wars? Of course not. We know it's a big universe, it's a big galaxy. There's so many years and so many eras that they can do that have been touched upon, have been talked about, and even haven't been talked about.
But she's
not
the
the
anchor.
future. But here, yes, she, like it or not, she is the new Luke Skywalker. That she is that central heroic figure.
Don't ever say
going
that
forward. Again,
Blocked.
she
Hashtag
is
blocked.
She is. That's just the reality
You're
of it.
cutting deep
Okay?
now, Lunga.
That's the reality of it. Okay? Again, but that doesn't mean she's the future. There's other things you can do too. You can't expect them to make a series, this trilogy, a sequel trilogy, have that character and then never touch her again. Now, we can argue on the timing. Should they wait a little bit longer for nostalgia to build this and that? Yeah. Should they maybe do other things, animated shows and other stuff, maybe to like they did with the Clone Wars, to maybe help build that nostalgia and feel, maybe fix some of the plot holes or things that didn't work so well, like they did with the Clone Wars? You could do that, okay? So technically, yeah, she is the future of your central character. She is. And I was fine with the movie. But again, the issue is, it's not fine if they have learned nothing since 2015. They've learned nothing. In fact, they've regressed. And this is after having something like The Mandalorian, which you struck gold with for at least the first 2 seasons. Okay? And this is with the Shakespearean level writing that we got in Andor. Okay? Why don't you take the things that work at the very least? At the very least. Okay. A child can do this. Andor season 1, people liked. Andor, even though the numbers didn't show it, people generally liked. And the critics liked it. Let's do more of that. Not the story, but how we did it. How did we do that? How did we catch that lightning in a bottle? Let's replicate that plan. And they can't even do that. They can't even stick to what they have done well and replicate it. That's the problem.
So so much to say with Rey.
What's going on?
Let's just go another hour. Come on.
Yeah, no. This is the last point, and then we're getting the fuck out of here. People watch the sequels for Luke, Han, and Leia. They did not watch it for Rey. And the proof in the pudding of that is the big drops in the box office from 7, 8, and 9 as you continued to kill off Han, Luke, and then Leia. That's how it worked. And The Force Awakens did, what, $2 billion in the box office? Rise of Skywalker barely did $1 billion. So half of what your first film did. None of the other Star Wars trilogies had that big of a drop-off in numbers. And I understand we're talking about $1 billion difference, but that is crazy. Your third film in your trilogy made $1 billion less than your first one. That's a huge drop-off. And I think that's an important note for Lucasfilm to look at and see that people are not interested in Rey like that because people lost interest in that storyline. So the idea of making her and the end of the Skywalker saga with Rise of Skywalker being the jumping off point for future stories and using her as a new Luke, I think it's an awful idea. People did not want to see this. People wanted to see, we won't see it now, but they wanted to see Luke make a new Jedi Order. To not only not do that, but then to replace him with the exact same circumstances with Rey, it's kind of insulting, honestly. It's hard to get people in touch because it's like, why are you doing this with her? I wanted to see you do this with Luke. They still have barely touched Luke's Jedi Academy. And we've known all the major plot points of that. He started it, Kylo Ren killed everybody. Like, we know what happened, and they still have not even touched that in a meaningful way in the past 5 years.
Comic books, buddy. Comic books. That's all you need. You got it. Comic books. That's all you got to do is read the comics.
And even in the comics, they really don't. This is the thing, like I said earlier, where they don't want to commit to anything. They really barely scratch the surface on stuff with his Jedi Academy. So you're still not giving us what we wanted with Luke's Jedi Academy throughout The Mandalorian, throughout comic books, or even a fucking book series. But you are going to give us a 4 to 5, whatever, quadrilogy of movies about Rey's Jedi Academy. That, I think, is going to turn off so many Star Wars fans who are OT purists like me, or just kind of the older generation who think of Star Wars as Luke Skywalker. It is becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I hate saying this because I don't want to get into this whole woke thing at all, but it literally is the South Park thing of put a chick in it and make it lame. You know, like they took what we wanted with Luke having a Jedi Academy, took him out of it, put Rey in there, And now no one's interested because you didn't focus on Rey these past 3 movies. You focused on Luke, Han, and Leia. Now you want to focus on Rey in these next 4 or 5 movies, and you're not going to focus on the new characters to build up the future stories.
And what people always focus
And
on
that
is the
is-
wrong line of that phrase. The part of that phrase that makes it bad is the second part, not the first part. Make it lame. That's the part that's the issue.
Make it
Because you
lame.
could you could have a woman in it and it not be lame. You just don't know how to write it. That's the problem.
Absolutely. Lunga, can we do the show calendar before we close this
Yeah,
bad boy?
of course.
show out?
That's why I have little buttons in front of me.
That's why I love them. Let's take a look at this upcoming schedule for the show. Next week, November 20th, we're going to review Star Wars in 2024. November 27th, we start our Skeleton Crew coverage with a preview of the series. And then December 4th is a 2-episode premiere of the Skeleton Crew. And that's the plan for the rest of December, which shows on the 11th and the 18th. So get ready, guys. Skeleton Crew's coming. We're here for it. And Ro's going to be here for a little bit of it, too. Before we close out the show, big shout out to all the channel members that we all love to member. Grievous Reborn, Tom, Katie Miller, my boy, your boy, the Cloney boy, and the biggest of shout outs to Ro. Thank you so much for coming on here. Is there any parting words, wisdom, or life advice for me specifically that you have for us, the audience?
No, just we coined a phrase and a hashtag. I know we are fans at heart, and we like to discuss all things Star Wars. But I always employ folks to enjoy Star Wars responsibly, and that's the scuttlebutt.
I fucking love that. God damn, that's good. Lunga, Palpamemes, we're coming back next week. Anything you want to leave the members
Ooh,
with?
next week we're doing 2024 for Star Wars. Is that correct?
2024, baby. It's time to look back on this
Yeah.
past year.
Yeah.
gotta
Talking
put
about that
your
article,
chest,
talking about that article, I think I scuttled a few butts with that. Talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, my parting word would be, wow, what a. I mean, if you told me this was going to be going
here.
on 2020, I would have been like, nah, no way.
You want my
No
parting
way.
word?
I may have gone too far in a few places.
That's
I
me.
Yes,
love it.
George. Yes, you did. Why'd you sell it to Disney?
You know what's funny though? People use that phrase a lot, and they give George Lucas a lot of shit. But damn it, they were his fucking movies. Cut him some slack. They were his.
They were movies.
But if you listen to him talk, like when he says that stuff, he says, "I may have gone too far in a few places," but you know what? He's also unapologetic. He's like,
he knows. He knows. He's just saying,
he's like,
what it is.
"I did," but you know what? They're my movies. Like it or not, this is what you're getting. So.
Oh, you don't like Jar Jar? Yeah, maybe you shut the fuck up. $4 billion in the bank, baby. All right?
$4 billion.
Kiss my white ass. So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning into this episode of the Chatooine Show. Join us next week, and be sure to follow Ro on the Scuttlebutt podcast. We have all the links to that in the description below. And clearly, we're going to be here for a couple years. There's not only a lot of Star Wars movies. There's not the power of one Star Wars movie. The power.
We're
going to
be here for a lot of. Oh my god.
There's
I'm
the
never getting away from you
power
guys.
of many.
We're going to be here for a lot of years, guys, talking about all these movies that haven't been made. That's what we're going to be here for.
And also, like George Lucas said, not that I've gone too far in a few places. It's going to be great. It's absolutely going to be great.
That's great. It's going to be great. That's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Fucking gorgeous. Well, that's all from us here on the Chatooine Show. Remember to return here next week. Talk about some Star Wars in 2024. We'll see you all next time, and may the Force be with you. Rey
Rey Skywalker.